So thank you so much for all of you being here in this session. We're going to be recording in 2 languages because some people could not attend the meeting today. Some are going to come a little later. But I really would like to appreciate everyone who's here at this moment in time. And also introduce you our 2 new facilitators who are also together with us tonight, today, this morning, depending on the reason you are, which is who's going to be Mateus and Mari. So it's going to be a great honor today to have those 2 new co-facilitators. And our next session, we might have Lorenzo as well. So those are the 3 volunteers that when we had made the invitation, they took the opportunity, and they're also doing an amazing work in the backstage scene to make sure that we can have a great experience in 2023. So thank you so much. And for Mari, Mateus, and also Lorenzo in the future, in a way that we can be supporting each other. Another people, like we're gonna have Sole, so the participatory video this year, it won't be separate. We're gonna be all together co-creating the best experience for all of us to really develop the best composition for co-creation in our ecosystem in Latin America, evolve Prosocial world in a different level of awareness, coming from the individual to the ecosystem level, which we can say our own self, but also the organization, our countries, and our continent. So this is another opportunity. So Sole, thank you so much for being here as well. So this is going to be an amazing experience. And also for most of you, you had opportunity to meet and Beth. So we have Beth and Robert also working. Robert is with us throughout the journey, but Beth is new this year. So she's coming over to be our research facilitator, can I say, together with Robert, to make sure that we can have our best experience to also to promote different levels of how to communicate, and also how we can engage and learn to emphasize our co-creation and our project all together. So thank you, Beth, for being here as well.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. So to start, we have Robert from last year, me and Marcelo, right? So we're all here together. We continue with this journey together with all of you, and this has been amazing. So thank you, Marcelo. Thank you, Robert, for all this opportunity for 2023. We keep on going. And this year we're gonna have something different. So we invited and we learned from Mari as well, like the indigenous people from Brazil, how important it is to start any ritual or any meeting in a different way. So it's a time that she's going to explain to us a little bit more. I'm going to invite Mari to start our session today. And right after, she's going to assist and facilitate our check-in for tonight. So Mari, com você agora, querida.
Mari, it's with you now. I think you're muted. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Here it's at the end of the afternoon here, and I'm very happy to be in this journey and to be creating a field with you so that we can co-create a new world, a better tomorrow for everyone. And in my culture and in my people, we always begin something new with something that symbolizes it, with a chant, a song, or a prayer. And I'm going to do that so that we can feel this vibration, that everything that we're starting for 2023 is going to be wonderful.
Yandere kora vai kwegwi, yandere charai yandere free. Yandere kora ema jade kova ke. Jabu awa, jabu awa, jabu awa. Yamandu miri. Yamandu Tove, 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 tove. Yamandu miri, yamandu miri. Sove, sove. Sove, sove, sove. Yamando mirim, yamando mirim. Sove, sove. Sove, sove, sove. E assim a gente te pede, né? Nyandere korava kwegi,
And
nyandere
we
charai,
then ask,
e tudo que a
Nyanadekora,
gente tem, que a gente possa lembrar do nosso caso de reza, né? Do nosso lugar de
that
oração, da
we
onde a gente
can
coloca o nosso
remember our prayer house, the place of prayer
a nossa
that we have. And our late father
e é aqui
always
que no nosso coração,
said that
no nosso
our
caso de
prayer
reza,
house is inside
se
our hearts. And
planeta, né?
from our hearts, from our prayer house, we say this prayer for our larger house and home, which is the planet. And this other song that I sang at the
Yamandumirim é
end,
só,
Yamindumirim,
então o amanhã sempre vem.
Tove Tove Tua, means that,
Possa
Yamandumirim is the
aceitar que
sun. And so the tomorrow always comes. Let it come.
para nós,
And
para os
may
nossos filhos,
we be part
que
of building a better tomorrow for us, for our children, and for the humanity that is here, for the future generations that are to come. And that's it. I'm very happy to be here with you.
Grata, Mari, pela abertura, pelo esse
Thank you,
espaço,
Mari, for this space and for this opening. And now we have this check-in moment with you. And then in our check-in, we would like to bring this question of what makes us believe in our own organizations and bring stories in first person.
colocar aqui, né, a
So I'd,
nossa reflexão do
to
nosso coração, né?
say
E realmente é uma pergunta importante.
that it is an
O que nos
important
fez acreditar
question.
na nossa
What made us
organização? Nós
believe
mesmos,
in
né? Nós
our
mesmos.
organization? We
E
ourselves.
o que nos chamou
First,
é como
us,
se
what
a gente fosse chamado para algo
called us,
maior, né?
because it's as if we were called to something larger, bigger than ourselves. And I can say that
O que me chamou, né,
what called me
para estar fazendo isso que a gente faz
to be
aqui no meu
doing
povo mesmo,
this that we
né?
do, with my
Um tempo
people.
atrás,
There was a while
eu sempre me
back.
emociono quando eu conto essa história,
I'm
porque
always emotional when I tell this story because
do Guarani aqui na nossa, no nosso
the
país,
Guarani
são muita
people have a
dificuldade
very hard
e
life
casos são
here in
situações
our
extremas
region.
de fome mesmo.
We even have
E
extreme
teve uma vez
situations of
que, por
hunger
causa da
and
minha
famine.
e
So there was a time in which I went to my friend Patricia's house, and Patricia had nothing
nove filhos que ela
more than
e ela fez bolinhos
200
e
grams of
fritou aqueles
wheat
bolinhos e
to offer to 8 or 9 children. So she fried and made little cakes out of the wheat. And instead of offering to the children, she offered me first. And that moved something
é,
inside of
pelo
me. And I started to think, I need to do something about it
o povo Guarani ele
for
tinha
my
recurso
people.
antes da chegada do colonizador
Because
e
here, the Guarani people had resources before the colonizer arrived.
como fazer algo,
But
né?
nowadays, it is an impoverished people.
Essa
And how
realidade.
to do something about it,
Foi aí
to change this reality. So
e buscar
that's
meios de como
where I looked for strength inside of me and to look for means to start something new,
e
to
assim
bring
começou o
hope
processo da minha
to my
filha da
people.
Caibu para que ela
And that's how this started process in my Kaigu village, so that it serves as an inspiration and that I can take this inspiration model to other places that maybe are in the same situation that we are. And this makes me believe in what I'm doing, because in all of this process, I'm taking my people with me. And I invite you to
vocês acreditarem na organização de vocês.
speak, what made you believe in your own organization or project? Well, can I comment? First of all, I'd like to wish a good afternoon or good evening, good day to you, depending on where you are in the world. As Michele said, I hope that you are well. And what made me believe in my organization, what made me believe in what we do, was noticing the importance of living in the community. We, as human beings, I believe that we are not able to live alone, like isolated in the world. And we always need the other. We always need a community, a network to be able to survive and live. Currently, this is something that I see a lot and live through it, as most of you know, having the support that I need with my mother. And there's a very strong network that keeps me firm and strong. And from where I come, I was born and raised in a favela in a very impoverished neighborhood of Curitiba, in the metropolitan area of Curitiba, which is called Almirante Tamandaré. And despite the financial poverty, because there are people who are rich but not really, we notice that one of the ways to survive and live is by helping each other. Everybody knows everybody, everybody knows the reality of everybody else in the neighborhood, in the village, as we call it, the neighborhood where I was. So we always help each other. Sometimes, you have a shower with a problem and a neighbor comes and helps fix the shower, and sometimes you see someone who had trouble eating, and just like Mari said, and we see that and we help. And the neighbors, for example, helped take my mother to the hospital, and they helped doing that. So since I was very young, I see the importance of living in the community and of having the support network. And in the university, when I joined, I had the opportunity of getting to know the Conviver project and the Interagir and the Ginga program, and to participate in all of that. And that's what made me believe in our organization, remembering everything that I went through, and to see that I can continue doing that in the university. They're not two separate things and different things. So that's what I wanted to tell you. I'd like to hear from you now. Thank you. I think I'll continue then. And to speak of where I come from a Brazilian elite of people who had access to education, good quality education, had financial resources. And at a certain moment in my life, I was very much involved with myself and with the things that mattered only to me. And I could only look at my own universe. And at a certain point, I had an understanding, because of the pain, because of a separation, the end of a marriage. And I started to have a broader understanding, to have an expansion of what I was meant to do here in the world and with whom I was. So this understanding that I had 20 years ago
muito mais egóico e para lugar de
moved me to a
olhar
different
para
place.
dependência, para a totalidade,
I was in a very egoic place. And then I started to look at
momento
codependency and the totality, into the higher meaning of
mudamos
things.
o
And I believe that at a certain point, this made me connect with Michele, and then we created Collab Soul. And
dessa
Collab
força
Soul
e que
tries to be a representation of this interdependence, of the strength
olha
of
para
the collective, of the group. And it begins with us. It begins when we look at
fragilidade.
ourselves and we acknowledge ourselves, either as a fortress or as something frail. So this has moved me, just like learning for myself and learning for the world. And then you go from the micro here in Curitiba, where we live, and also macro to Latin America, for us to be able to go beyond what we can when we are alone. So I believe that's it. It's a contrast, because my life, many times, I thought there was nothing to it. I didn't realize that I had everything. And I was at the top of the elite in Brazil, living with people who had a lot of money. And it
Então eu vivi
was
muito
what
disso
we
também.
call high middle class, but I thought I was poor. And so, this awareness, this perception that's trained sometimes, right? We get lost in where we are, and we don't realize what we are and what we have in our hands. So I am a fruit of that, of a son of the Brazilian elite. So what about you?
Gracias por esas grandes historias. Em, cuando pienso un poco en cómo
I would like
inicié
to
todo este
thank you for
proceso,
sharing me your stories. When I reflect
pues esto me
on
lleva
how I got started, that
estudios
brings me back to
siempre
my years as a student in Colombia,
back-
where I always ask myself, how can I impact others with the possibilities of
tenemos el privilegio
education? And how we people that have the privilege of education
de ir a una misión
and
más grande,
access of
mucho
to
más allá
education can contribute to a broader mission
o el propio
that goes far beyond
lograr
their own benefit
académico.
or their own achievements as having
Este
a
proceso
degree, for example.
siempre
So my process of building
interna
up my own self generated a question, a constant question in me: who I am, how can I contribute to others, how can I impact communities? And these questions have been like a continuous series of questions that have sustained me in life. And they have conducted my life and my studies to create
alemán
impact in communities. I remember when I had a conversation with a German friend who was working in Paraguay, and when we were talking about the possibility of creating changes in territories, in our territories through our work,
con la
for example, with
biodiversidad, esto
plants and reinforcing the biodiversity in our region, I realized that that
camino
was the opportunity to find a path in which we were able to co-create
sobre
possibilities for communities and to be
crear
able to learn with
actividades para
communities, creating new possibilities for the farmers in Paraguay, as my friend shared. And that gave me the insight
la
because I
necesidad
went to Paraguay, I talked to people, I feel the need
de
of different forms to relate with nature.
que
And I got acquainted
nuevos
with problematics that
de cómo pues,
make me
economías
believe
desde
that we can find new paths, that we can find new economies, reinforcing local communities.
texto en el que
In the present, I tried to reinforce that concept,
continuamente
even though I'm in a context I don't experience that is reinforced
esos procesos
around me,
los
those
territorios.
questions, but I try to maintain
Y
it
ello
alive with myself because
esto es
I'm
posible
related to Latin America.
iniciar
And exactly
una
those
persona
communities is
procesos y
exactly what maintains me connected with this purpose. Each time that I have the opportunity to work with organizations that work in Latin America, that help me to realize that change is possible, and allows me to believe that a change is possible in this world, that we have the power to
naturaleza
change through collaborative
mente me ayuda como
work to change the reality in this world. And this is exactly what keeps me
que este espacio
working and maintaining those efforts. This space of Prosocial, where I meet with
me ayuda
you
a
and I
creer
have the chance to share with you, that inspires me and gives me strength to continue with my own project, the project we are doing with Lina. That's what I would like to share with you. And I would like to hear what other colleagues have to share about their own strengths.
En español.
I will continue and I will talk in Spanish. It's very interesting because I see myself, I mirror myself in the things that have been said up to now. I have like three areas that I would like to talk about. One is the experience that I had similar with Marcelo on the personal basis of experiencing a change, as experience of loss that made me change and made me think life must be something more. And on the other side, my own quest, a spiritual search, and also, like Ricardo, to be able to see in education a responsibility for those of us who have the privilege of being, of educate ourselves, and to take that privilege with responsibility to do more for others and less for our own self. And that brought me to a path to see what I would like to do from the professional point of view, but also from my personal point of view of the world. And I felt that I couldn't do that in Argentina, that I wouldn't be able to come out of the status quo environment where I was, a middle class society. So I decided to study abroad, to be able to do what I really wanted from zero, in complete freedom. And when I talk about freedom, it's not freedom from friends and family, but from the society, where like the power the society has over us. So being abroad gave me freedom. So I started to study, and from that field, I went again back to Latin America from a different point of view. I studied communications in a traditional basis. And when I came to England, I studied communication for social change. And I love that. I love to find all the pioneers that were trying to change in Latin America, and that were helping also to create changes in other places. One of those were Paulo Freire. And exactly those encounters made me fall in love with those visions from Peru, Colombia. And I found inside chair, then on my path, which was exactly in the line of putting into practice many of these principles from the communication for social change, using photography, theater, art, nonviolent communication, pacific communication, and other tools of that sort. Well, lots of methods, all to serve community processes. And then I experienced the second occasion where I fall in love with an organization. And then I was asking about my own role as a communicator. And I asked that myself inside chair. I said, when we cook, it's not the main ingredient what is important. I don't know if it is lemon or but what I feel that is that this thought is what makes, it's actually what makes bread grow, because that element helps actually to help social processes. We are inspired by the organizations we work with. I would like to refer also to the metaphor of the bees who help actually bringing the pollen from one flower to the other. And this connecting is actually what I rescue from the concept. I do believe in the social society as the main promoters of change. The bigger structures of change, I feel they have less power of movement and freedom. They have their own space, of course, but I trust much more on the individual human being that tries to do something individually and collectively. Even if I see things changing in bigger structures, is always starting with one person or a group of people who wanted to make things differently. Exactly that value of human beings that sometimes feel lonely, but with faith and constance or perseverance, we are able to produce big changes. And I keep going, doing what we do.
So wonderful listening to this. Thank you, Marilini, for your prayers and your introduction and for everything that everyone said. I mean, for as long as I can remember, I've had simple trust in people. And I can remember as just really young, just a youngster, being really shocked that anyone could act with violence toward someone else or the environment. And it still shocks me today. And I guess like all of us, we've had ups and downs in our lives, haven't we? And there's been times where in my life where it's been really tough for various reasons. And I've nearly lost that simple trust. But then it's come back, and I thought that's the one thing that we actually all have. And it's that capacity to love each other and the planet. And I've increasingly grown to feel as though we've forgotten how to do that. And each of you who have spoken, not just today, but even on the program last year, have just made it really clear that that's the power we have. I know that when we were part of kind of reflecting on our journey, Carolina and Maritza, who have been doing all the interpreting for us, spoke about their experience, and something that they reflected, particularly Carolina. She said that that in most of her work, she's translating violence, whereas in this program, she's very moved. She's found herself translating love, which is pretty rare. And I think that's an unstoppable force, isn't it? It's almost like that is the power of life itself. And I think about how Mother Nature looks just so altruistically looks after us. And I know for myself what it is that moves us is beyond my comprehension, let alone description. But it's amazing that we can actually attend to it. Particularly, we can feel it and we can tell stories about it. And we can move in a direction to build a world where there's actually more of it. And that's what's inspired me so much about working with you folk and everybody who's not on this call, because there's between the group of organizations. I remember at one point we reflected on how many lives we might be touching, and it was in excess of 1,000 lives right across the planet. Not only are there initiatives happening in Latin America, but I mean, Adrian, you're here from Africa right now, but there are others, that span across Asia and up into Canada. And the potential we've got is enormous, I think. I feel as though my biggest inspiration is the threshold we've crossed from doing, it's like we're becoming, it's much more than an organization. We're becoming community. It's like we're communing together, but in a really deep way. And with a desire to actually do things that are going to realize big and long-term change in the world. I'm just feeling very privileged and humbled to be with you folk on this journey and to be able to share, the little bit of wisdom I've gained in my life. Because really, I feel as though I don't know much. I've learned a little bit, and it's lovely when it matters. So it's just wonderful. Thank you, everybody.
Maybe I should take over from here.
Thanks, Adrian.
Okay, so I would just like to share a little bit about my journey and how I found myself into this position at this point in time. So first of all, about 7 years ago, if I was told I would be in this position, I'm not sure that I would have accepted or I would have believed that I'll be in this position at this point in time, because I am a forestry engineer by training and also an eco guard. So my training was a little bit different from what I'm doing right now. But then all everything happened like it was already planned. For example, during my training for my internships and all, for my field work, I usually do all that in national parks. And as an eco guard, there are strict laws and regulations by the nation that you have to follow in terms of conservation and forestry and all. So all these trainings, during all these trainings, we are being called upon. Maybe there is a poacher at one point in a national park. We have to go get the poacher, and we are armed with guns and all. Even though we don't use them that much, but we are all armed with all those things. Now, whenever we have information that maybe local people from neighboring villages enter national parks, whenever you go closer to them, you see the fear in their eyes. Whenever you go closer to them, you see how terrified they are, seeing people in uniforms, armed with guns and all, even though all those guns are to protect the biodiversity, but then they feel they are really afraid. But then when they talk, they try to explain that they try to do that just for their families. They're looking for what to eat. And the way they explain it, you feel that deep, you feel deep within them that they're actually looking for their livelihood. Now, away from that, when you go to these communities, you see their daily activities, you see what they do, and you find yourself thinking a lot. What can you do? What can you do to help them? What can you do to show them to do better in whatever activities that they are doing? So during my training, I found myself always getting close to the community instead of being in this, like, I would like to call it like barracks, like the eco guards. They are usually barracks that we stay there. We don't go outside. So instead of being there, I find myself always going closer to the community just to hear them speak, just to hear them talk. Now, someone just wants to talk, just want to for you to hear whatever he or she has to say. Just give them the listening ear, and they explain all their problems. And you have a million questions. What can I do? How can we change this? Now, it's true that the conservation laws in Cameroon are not that easy for the local people, because when we are talking about conservation, the indigenous and the local people, they feel the most effect of everything. Now, this is based on the laws in which I'm talking specifically for my country. The laws put in place are usually somehow harsh for the indigenous people, because they depend on everything in the forest. They depend on everything. But if you remove them from that forest, it becomes a huge problem. Now, luckily enough, after my training, I got an opportunity to be an intern in the organization that I'm working for. Now, as an intern, working with the community, trying to come up with a community forestry program. And that was where everything started. I started feeling that this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. I want to help these people. I want to put a smile on the faces of people. And now, as a community conservation organization, we are all trying to look for a holistic way in order to fight against climate change, biodiversity loss, and degradation, and all whatnot. So working with the communities over these years have been, I would like to call it like a dream come true for me, because I can count the number of lives or the number of people smile whenever we are in these communities. Like, they feel secure. Unlike if I was there, like in an eco guard uniform and all, armed with guns, they will never feel secure. And when we go there, they are the ones coming to us. They are the ones looking for us. They're the ones trying to talk to us, explain to us. Now, they don't need our money. They don't need that. They just need us to be there for them. They need that listening ear to hear their problems, know what they are trying to do. So that's why working in a conservation community conservation organization, and also with Dr. Terry, has been a blessing, because I finally found what I was actually meant to do. Because yeah, it's true that I don't get to spend a lot of time in town, like, of course, like the way I would have wanted, maybe spending in town doing some fun things. But or should I say I'm happier when I am able to put a smile on one person's face, especially in these communities. I am happier when I'm able to look to find a solution to a particular problem in a particular community. I am much more happier whenever we try to change the life of a particular community. So I think this is just what I was meant to do, and I am enjoying every second of it. And also coming in contact with Insight Share and Prosocial World, it was just like an icing on the cake. It was like the missing piece of whatever we're looking for all these years. So now, I believe strongly that the future is really bright. For this working together, doing things together, I think we can actually build a huge impact. Just imagine, I'm far away in Africa, way in Central Africa, in Cameroon, you guys are over there, and we could still communicate. We could still make plans to better the lives of people, or change life, or help the environment, fight against a lot of things. I think it's just something else. It's more than words can actually explain. So I could only say thank you for everything. That's all. Yeah.
I would like to share something. So I don't believe I've met Adrian. Hi, Adrian. My name is Beth Hawkins. I'm with Prosocial World. Hi, Adrian. So I'm new to Prosocial and new to Prosocial World. I came along about 6 months ago, and so I've been learning the prosocial approaches. I've been learning all the things that you all have been learning a lot from Robert. And what has made me fall in love with my organization is you all. Everybody on this call. This is the first group of where I've seen and heard the impacts and the changes that you've experienced internally and externally and in your communities, because of this collaboration and because of this work with CollabSoul and Prosocial and Robert. I'm hearing it, I'm seeing it, and this is what I wanted to do in my life, is to be involved with something as impactful as this that really does, influence change. So thank you.
Marley, can we hear your beautiful voice?
Boa tarde. Na verdade, acho que está muito interessante.
Good afternoon. It's very interesting to hear you, actually.
Eu ouvi agora, eu acho que traz pouquinho de esperança
and what I just heard, brings me a bit of hope
no nosso país,
in a moment which is really complicated in our country, really. And what makes me feel motivated to work in the organization in which I am for 23 years now, and which Marcelo knows, I think the first thing is our team. There is a very open relationship of trust in this team, and also an acknowledgement that each and every one of us has different skills and strengths, and that can only help, really. And within this process, I think I have contributed a lot. I think I'm that person that likes more to initiate projects than taking care of them until the end. And in a certain way, I've been able to exercise that in the team. And I think that in 1989, that period that was so polarized when our former presidents Collor and Lula were in the elections, and they were fighting each other. That was very significant for me, because it was a time in which we came closer to the pedagogy of liberation. It was a very symbolic moment that still interferes in my choices and the place where I work. And I've had the option of choosing to work with these themes and social issues. And beyond that, I come from a rural world as well, a countryside area. So it's an entirely different reality, totally different from the reality of Marilene, for example. And these experiences, they contribute even to listening, which is what I'm doing now, to always be faced with
dentro da
what
gente
we
e
bring
de
historically inside of us, and in what way
os encontros
this can be transformed by the
hoje.
meetings that we have in our lives with other people. So what I have to say today, I think it's that. And I'd also like to apologize because I was absent in the past month, but I'm having to learn how to put my health first. So
Tá pro banco do carona.
now I'd like to continue to listen from you and to go back to the back seat and just hear you. Thank you. Beautiful, Marley. It's always wonderful to be close to you and to all of you. I think it's the first time that I'm going to share my story in Portuguese. And at the same time, you know, why I do things, and if I'm able to speak, because I get emotional, I start crying, and so. But I also had an opportunity of going through an education of immigrants with Japanese grandparents who came to Brazil and who always taught me the beauty and importance of thanking the country where we came from and the country where we are, and welcomed us in a wonderful way, which is Brazil. But at the same time, I was never able to understand why such a wonderful country had so many differences and inequalities and hunger and poverty and polarization, wars, and issues that I'm still not able to understand to this day. And with time, this grew, and it changed the impact and the relationship that I had with the world, looking for international relations as a major in order to look for solutions for things that I saw in, climate change and international relations, crisis and wars, and impact in indigenous peoples. Within this search of mine, I saw that everything was part of my personal journey, and none of that made sense. Why are there wars? Why is there hunger? Why do people harm each other? Why do we see violence against women? And why do we have people destroying nature? Why is the Amazon destroyed? Well, we see that it is so essential to be there. Why do we eliminate indigenous people? And since today they are so important, and they bring the importance of ancestry, which as a Japanese person is very important to me. So I was able to understand the differences in ethnicity and age as factors that were bringing social impact. And when this started to bring to me indicators, levels of suicide and anxiety, and the amount of people that had no meaning in their lives and jobs and schools and everything, I started to have an existential crisis. Like, nothing that we have in the planet makes sense. And thank God I had the opportunity of diving into spiritual matters that brought me different perceptions about why we are here on the planet. And with that, I started to look for my inner strength in order to not only complain and talk about difference, but in order to build everything that I could in terms of projects, programs, organizations, models, and different methodologies that could bring more sense and meaning to people in every sense, everywhere, for the jobs, for the youth, for our indigenous people, for people who do not know what they do every time they're waking up, so that I could leave here and remember that one day I was able to sow seeds of what I want to happen in the planet. So Collab Soul came from this love and this will to bring together with Marcelo, believing that a relationship is not just a loving relationship. A relationship is an union of something to be in the service of society and the planet and the things that really matter for the community. And within this aspect of bringing these possibilities of construction, building by means of this love that came from love and romantic love, but it's a love that's much more than that, and it's for the planet and the society.
Pode estar unindo esses esforços que são fundamentais e necessários.
How can we unite efforts that are essential for us to weave what we want to see and live? Nothing is possible to be done alone in isolation. And from this perception, the inner strengthening was very important. But that's why works like this and projects like this with Prosocial and TWCF and all organizations that we present here bring to me not only the hope, but the certainty that life is worth living because there's a reason that's greater than my own, you know, of living only for myself, but living for something that's possible to be done at this moment. So Collapsal came from that, but that's not possible to be done if we don't have a self-awareness, you know, in a collective manner. But that's it for me. It makes sense to bring things to the planet and to invest time in building these things so that we can make other people's lives more and more coherent in terms of the values that I have in Michele and that I want to see in the planet. So while there are forests being destroyed and children hungry and people not having the opportunity to speak and people having difficulty to access water, that all means that there is opportunity to meet amazing people doing amazing things in service of this world. And when that no longer exists, it's going to be great because we're going to have amazing people and infinite reasons to be together and celebrate all that. So I have this inside of me. That's what moves me. That's what makes me wake up every day and build everything that we've been building with so much love and care for this project in Latin America. So I believe Latin America has a lot to offer, really, in service of this planet, which is unique and specific for our cultures. So I'd like to thank you and honor all of you, Robert and Beth as well, bringing aspects from Australia and the United States and all of this love, and for us, you know, all of this Latin love. I was able to speak and not cry, so this is a good thing.
It's really special when I need to talk, when I'm having the opportunity to talk what moves me, and also after hearing so many people, so all of you telling your wonderful and beautiful stories. And that just makes me feel even more that I wanted to be more time together and hang out and construct and build, because this is all an amazing opportunity to be with amazing people doing amazing things. Thank you so much, Mari. Thank all of you for all your stories. This is just a starting point, because I know this is so important for us to start learning and emphasizing more from this little time that we have together, but having this time to get to know each other a little bit more, right? So today, just as an overview of the meeting, we're going to go over a couple of the things that we had happened last year. But at the same time, I would like to appreciate all of you that already had sent a couple of the documents and information that we've been requesting outside of this meetings. And thank for the forms that that Charles had sent for the funds. And hopefully for next week, we're going to have the feedback and all the details, how it's going to be delivered and share all these funds that we had access. But at the same time, for the ones who had not sent yet, please give us have a chance to send us by tomorrow or by the end of this week, like Friday at the most, because this is the time we're taking to translate all the documents that were sent in different languages, and then to have all this combined to share with Prosocial World community and have that information wrap up. So you still have a couple of time if you haven't sent yet. Well, please send us by this Friday, because then we're going to have an idea the amount of money that we'll be able to share and the time with every organization who's involved in this program. So today we're going to have I'm going to invite Beth and Robert, because we had our interviews for this year, and appreciating all the organizations that had the time all the organizations were represented, and it was wonderful. And now I'm going to invite Beth and Robert just to give us an overview so we can get along with this meeting today. Robert, Beth.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah. Do you want to kick us off, Beth?
Sure. I
Would you
didn't
like-
know if you wanted to do an introduction before but I have a question. Michelle or Marcelo, would you be able to share the presentation that I sent to you, or would you like me to share my screen?
What do you think more comfortable?
I think I'd rather you'd share the presentation. That's okay.
Well, maybe as it's coming up, maybe let me say a few words. I mean, Beth and I had the privilege of speaking with everybody over the last month, and we met in 3 groups. There's one group of organisations that are interested in education, another one in environmental conservation, and another group interested in social change. And first of all, very inspiring. You know, it's both Beth and I feel very privileged to be connecting with you and hearing you reflect on our journey last year and what we could do this year. When Beth, prepared a bit of a slide for the key messages we heard, but one of the things that I left those conversations feeling was a significant shift, really. And I guess the shift was last year we went on a program together, and Soleil and Insight Share added huge value alongside us. And what I noticed that it's in the main program that we hosted, Michelle and Marcelo hosted, and the program that Soleil hosted, there was just an extraordinary amount of quality learning and an effort to do things within your organizations and your communities. But it was still a program. A lot of what we achieved were deliverables for the course. Whereas the big shift this year is we've all chosen, we're now a community, and we're going to work together because we actually care for each other and our respective endeavors. And we want to support each other in order to realize major change. And so this year, it's not going to be anything like a course. I mean, we'll have similar conversations, but the big shift is we've come together because we want to have these conversations, because we somehow know that if we collaborate, we can make a difference, a bigger difference than we are. And, some of you have stepped up to help co-facilitate these dialogues, and some of them are very complex dialogues. And so this is very inspiring for me. So one of the big things that was clear for Beth and I when we had these conversations is this shift. We've shifted from a group of people who are doing a course or a program to a community who are hanging out together because we care and we want to make a difference for the future. It's just wonderful.
Thank you, Robert. That I appreciate you providing an overview and calling out the shift that we did observe, and that's kind of like the big picture. I think the big picture, and I would like to share some of the things that we heard from you all during the interviews, and like Robert said, we have a little slide deck to share. Thank you, Michelle. Let's see, you could go ahead and go on to the next slide if you'd like. Okay, thank you. Well, as most of you are aware, the cycle 2 of the Prosocial TWCF Latin America project was initiated in January and was kicked off with a meeting with several of the organizations, you all that participated in cycle 1. The goal of that kickoff meeting was to explore different possibilities and new areas of joint action in cycle 2. And one aim of cycle 2 is to build 3 pillars of sustainable collaboration, the social change, environmental conservation, and education. And so following this meeting, Robert and I, along with the fabulous interpreters, held these group interviews based on areas of interest that we held with several of the organizations in cycle 1. So what the goal from the interviews was to achieve a deeper shared sense of the collective impact a sustainable collaboration could realize, to share stories of most significant change and evidence of change and your vision for cycle 2. Let's see, Anna is helping me. Anna, might you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so here are the interview questions. We framed the interviews around these 6 questions. So number 1, what was the most significant change that you experienced as a result of last year's program? 2, what is your vision for this year through the program that has been outlined by Marcelo and Michelle and Robert? 3, if we're able to contribute a small amount of funds to your proposed project, what might you use those funds for? 4, what does safe self-sustainability look like within your proposed project? 5, what opportunities for research can you imagine in order to capture the most significant change for this next round? And would using participatory video again be of interest? So next I'll present some overarching findings from the interviews with a particular focus on the most significant change that you all shared with us, and your visions for cycle 2 and 3, the potential challenges that you also had identified. Next slide, please. Okay, so here we see some familiar faces from the social change group. You'll see that Mateus and Marilini attended the interviews with all of the groups due to the role that they'll be playing and, for cycle 2. So from this group, there was a collective appreciation and desire for individuals to connect and form partnerships, to connect voices, to restore Indigenous wisdom and practice, and support young people. So regarding the areas of most significant change, we heard that that you all experienced personal growth, that you gained business knowledge and awareness of other similar projects in Latin America, that you learned about collaborative networks, and some of you had become inspired to be a prosocial facilitator. The vision, many of you had a vision to build and organize a self-sustaining network of cooperation, to co-create partnerships with greater connection and more involvement between projects, a union perhaps, and to, again, increase opportunities for young people to flourish. Some challenges mentioned were unbelievers in change and how to produce evidence of success to convince those unbelievers. At the bottom here are 2 beautiful anecdotes from this particular interview that I would like to share. To refine our alignment, we can only do this in a cooperative way, to sit down and hear the potential dream that each person envisions. Through knowledge comes power, and through teaching comes learning. Recognize the power of Indigenous wisdom. We have a different outlook on things, one that does not use clocks and schedules, but uses the time of nature. We could go to the next slide. Actually, you can stay there. One more thing I did want to say about the previous slide is there something that was mentioned was to learn more about building connection rather than conflict, and how to manage the emotional experience of it and of all of it. And that was another most significant change that was mentioned. So if you could go to the the next slide, please. Okay, so this was the environmental group. So from this group, there was a collective appreciation for contributing and exchanging knowledge. Regarding the areas of most significant change, we heard that learning about the benefits and methods of collaborative networks, understanding deeply what it means to listen and to feel, and to focus more on the human element of a project than the technical aspects of the project. And this was a big shift. You all have a vision to scale projects up and adapt to new communities, to create more opportunities for cooperation by organizing in clusters, to contribute to other projects and bring other partnerships and resources for implementation, and then to develop or to strengthen strategies and action plans to be more related to the communities in which you want to work in. And then challenges mentioned in this group are working across boundaries, developing shared meaning and methods and platforms for monitoring concrete indicators of change. So like Lena and Ricardo mentioned that it's a huge challenge to implement projects from where you're located. And so that's a challenge with working across boundaries we saw or we heard. The shared meaning, there's something that I believe Terry had mentioned, that there's the common definitions for environmental conservation is a challenge. And so here again are a couple of anecdotes at the bottom of the slide that I found incredibly impactful, and really highlight the connection that to the land that is missing. So people are ill in the cities. They're suffering from an emptiness, a hollowness without connection and exposure to nature and land. And this next statement I could really resonate with, because I too am nervous about expressing myself. And I too don't feel very comfortable talking. But when I was received here with an open heart and started to connect, I felt more comfortable. So that just to me speaks to how powerful connections are. Next slide, please, Anna. So let's see. In this group, this lovely group, collectively, this group is looking to break paradigms, and they're looking to break away from the cultural norm of bullying and violence and cultural prejudice. And the vision is a combination of preserving indigenous heritage, maintaining cultural identity, and to mainstream the social diligence to really look after people. So Helen, I'll go back. So the most significant change is learning how to think systematically about resources, how to realign projects to really meet community needs, and learning creative ways to work with communities around the world. And so the vision here is to expand boundaries again, to scale projects up and adapt to new communities. Challenges are promoting the engagement, funding, and again, monitoring outcomes on the ground. Helen, in this group, she's looking to expand boundaries to look at the outcomes of education in tent school communities in Angola, Africa. This is a pastoral community, and how to maintain cultural identity in a pastoral community with these government boarding school regulations. And then Sonia, she's researching love and promoting character strength, humility, and gratitude to one teacher, one child, and one family at a time. So that seemed to be really expanding boundaries and breaking paradigms. And this beautiful anecdote again. Look, we are here. We are suffering violence. We want to be respected, and our culture be respected for contributing medicine and knowledge and cultural heritage for all humankind to heal. Little by little, starting to work with schools and to stop prejudice. The next slide, please, Anna. And the last slide. To our interpreters and our tech host, Anna and Carolina and Maritza, thank you. You all are amazing. I really, and that's the end of this presentation. I really hope that we captured your voices accurately and adequately. Thank you for inviting me to share share what we extracted from your interviews. Does anyone have any questions, or would anyone, or Robert, would you like to chime in, or anyone else?
Yeah, just one extra thing that was really apparent was that, you know, in relation to wanting to capture the stories that you mentioned, and to leverage what Insight Share and Soleil taught us last year.
Oh,
that
right,
participatory
yes.
video was we wanted to really figure out how we can use that much more powerfully. And so that'll be an open exploration and discussion going forward. But yeah, that was another one. It was kind of, yep, we've got a powerful story to tell because we're doing powerful work. And let's work with Soleil to help us do that.
Yes, thank you, Robert. There was actually a whole slide that I started to put together for Soleil and participatory video. Where did that slide go? But you did wonderfully. Thank you, Robert, for bringing that up.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Michelle.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Beth. I think it's just wonderful. And I don't know, because I haven't been in all the meetings. We just watched the videos after, but it's so amazing to see there's so much connection and power of this whole history and story that we can tell together during this year. I was just mentioning I would not share the whole slide or the whole vision, but just in general, I'm going to ask Marcelo to just share very fast our butterfly, and then I'll come up and ask and invite Soleil. Because our main journey this year, our main journey this year, we're having and talking about all those 4 different levels. If you see from a broader perspective, can you make it smaller? We can see that looks like a butterfly in a way. That is an image that we can see that it comes along throughout this journey. We're gonna have 11 moments together. This is our actually second moment because we have our interviews, but this is gonna be our journey. And we have different times. There's scheduled throughout this whole path. And at the same time, we're starting from 4 different levels. So we're starting from our individual level, organizational level, thematic or cluster level, and also ecosystem level. When we see all those figures and pictures, we won't talk about all in little details because we're going to express that time to time. But what I think it's so important is just to come and make this invitation to Soleil to come on board, because all those lines that are drawn and designed in this whole journey, when we can see, those are all great opportunities to get engaged and register our own powerful stories. So today we have our little sharing today, but we know that most of the things that we're going to be doing during this whole path in this first semester is really powerful. How we're going to tell, how we're going to promote, how we're going to share with people the impacts and the great stories we have in our own organizations, our own stories, but also our ecosystem stories, and how we can develop and how we go working together throughout the semester. So from this, it's not everything perfect design, because we believe in the ecosystem that everything can emerge, and the co-creation is part of this whole system in this path of this semester. I'm gonna just invite Soleil because she got involved and was invited to come over to talk to us a little bit opportunities. At the same time, come on board from last year and what you can see from your own perspective, Soleil, that it's powerful and that we can be using for this year. I know we're very short in time. I was giving you 12 minutes, but if you can make like in 5 minutes, I know it's really short, but then we can talk about that later. But thank you, Soleil, and inviting you to come along.
Thank you. Well, yes, as today we could talk a lot. If I would have had Beth's slides a couple of weeks ago, I would be beaming with ideas. But my first reaction beyond all our conversations is that you can really weave it so well. for all your ambitions and for all the ambitions of the 3 clusters. And you have experienced it last year, at least I would say 70% of the organizations. So you're in a really good position for the organizations in each cluster that have experienced participatory video to take a lead in the cluster in sharing how to do participatory video. And what we are going to propose, as Robert and Michelle have said, is to do it not as a separate thing. You know, last year we did a training, and there's still recordings out there and things for those in the wider group that are curious. So the idea is to support you to take it to the next level. And my suggestion is that you do the same that you're doing now. You know, Marilyn and Mateus, you are stepping up as co-facilitators. I do think this is a bit the same in participatory video. The key organizations in each cluster that have done participatory video last year should be those co-facilitators there for participatory video. And instead of training, what we're going to provide this year is what we call a bit coaching and support, ongoing support on key questions. And we may be able to organize some sessions on some tools and some ways in which you can do that coaching, and some key sessions that you want me there, but others may just be between the clusters. And I think that's the beauty of it, that you can figure it out. But I think you did test it in 2 amazing ways last year. One was to learn from each other. You know, the amazing experiences that we all just felt by listening to each other in this call, you've done it through the little games and exercises throughout the training last year. And there is a playlist that you all received at the end that has something like 50 videos. That is a playlist of videos just for you as a group. It wasn't a public one on YouTube. And that's a little bit of a sample of how you share with each other last year. And so you don't have to do anything fancy and think of video as a Steven Spielberg film for an Oscar. That's not how we use video. Yes. To make a video for going to a film festival, you can hire a filmmaker. That's not the point here. The idea is that you can use your skills, and most of you got phones last year, or maybe you already have cameras. In some of the organizations, they had cameras. They didn't need phones. And you can set yourself small tasks. And I love the question with which you did the check-in today. It was a simple, open question. And you can do something similar for each step of the journey and ask people to do what is called a video diary. So they record themselves for a minute. It doesn't have to be hours. And, you know, they don't even have to edit much, like you did the little exercises through the training with basic technology. And then you upload it to a shared space where everybody can watch each other things. And you can nurture each other through those journeys at cluster level, and then at ecosystem level when we come all together in key moments. But I think that definitely to share the individual and the organizational level is totally easy to do, not costly or time consuming. And you also document everything for research and evidence and most significant change. So it's like in one process, you do it all. For the impact at community level in the work you do on environmental issues, social change, and education, I think that is more the experience you had last year with the pilots. For example, Mateus, you did an amazing process in a school, or Marilyn, you did an amazing process with the community recording the construction of Casa de Rezo. So those were community processes. Those were not just your personal journey. Yes. So when you want to also at cluster level work on those issues in your respective projects or communities, you could propose, if you want, as part of your activities or the small budgets that you're going to be using for these processes, to do a participatory video exercise as part of that, as part of the activities that you do. And I think that can, again, do two things. One is capture certain things at community level that everybody can learn from, but also amplify the activities that are happening in those three thematic areas. Yes. So in my view, there are different things. One thing is the inward learning of us as a network and as an ecosystem, and the other thing is what we do to support the processes in the world in the topics we work. So you can do both with participatory video, and I think you had amazing experiences. I think the videos and the things that were produced by Mateos, Marilyn, Oscar, and Ceci in Colombia are outstanding examples. So everybody can learn from those, even if some of your organizations didn't do this process. So I was thinking, for example, Ricardo, you haven't participated in the participatory video training because the timings were not great. But you just watching the things that they did, you will quickly get an idea of how can you embed it in your own work. It's not complex, and the feeling of being inspired by each other, by peers, is fascinating. And you'll see what the guys of Barichara did in Colombia, which is absolutely amazing, both at community level with young people in their PV pilots, as well as in their little individual videos of thinking through the how prosocial ways change them. So I would also add, obviously, the group in Chile. Obviously, Lorenza, she's going to join. They also use participatory videos really well. So they are all kind of amazing examples to learn in Latin America. Now, I was giving a little space at the end for Adrian, on purpose, Adrian, because I want also to put you as an example that everybody should learn from, even if we are in the beauty of the amazing translators universe, where we can speak to each other really easily because we have the amazing work of you guys interpreting. But even if you don't understand the languages of the videos, he has done some videos in French, some videos with the BACA. Watching them, you will understand the meaning. That is the other amazing thing of participatory video. Yes, of course, if you have a subtitle, is even better. But the non-verbal communication tells you so much. And that's why it's also great that you use your mother tongues. So Marilyn, I would say do absolutely everything in your mother tongue. And it doesn't have to be in Portuguese. And I think that is something else that you can appreciate, that you can learn from each other without those boundaries. And Adrian is such a champion of participatory video that I have to say, Adrian, I'm going to tell them the little secret. Well, not so secret because Robert knows, but Adrian is applying for funding to do a big participatory video project in one of their community conservation processes that he's working on in Cameroon in a community. So fingers crossed, if he gets the money, then he's going to do a really big process to try to bring really complex stakeholders together through participatory video to better understand each other, each other's points of view, to move forward on supporting one particular species that he wants to support. But it's not only about the conservation, really, as he said earlier, it's about bringing people together to lead on things that matter to them, as well as to have a sustainable livelihood. So yeah, it's quite exciting. Hopefully he'll get that. So yeah, my just to close is, you have a lot of potential. I do think the system you put in place with the co-facilitators from each group should be the same in anything you do with participatory video, and that you should learn from each other. Use the videos for that, as well as for documentation. And I'm going to leave in the link, now that I finish, a post I put on LinkedIn yesterday of one participatory video guru, that's how I call it, or pioneer in India, who passed away recently, 2 weeks ago. And he was, you know, I would say from outside Latin America, he was the one figure that a lot of us in this field admire heavily. And we interviewed him in Portugal some years ago, one of our founders. So I share in that post the interview and how he came about, exactly a bit like your question at the beginning of today, how he came about from being a journalist to what he became, and what he kind of kick off in India that was a storm. So I leave you with that. And even though it's in English, I would encourage everybody to watch it when you have time, as inspiration of other change makers.
Thank you, Sole. It's all amazing and good and great job, Adrian. And hopefully we're going to have some good news in our next sessions from Adrian so we can share. And this is a good inspiration because now I keep thinking like how we're going to do that to our project, right, Mari? How we can do that in our backstage project, how we can raise more funds to actually have participatory video for many of the indigenous people or educational people or professors or teachers or anything that we need to empower even more their own programs in our area and region. So thank you, Adrian, for the inspiration. Thanks, Sole, for sharing. And now, because this is so moving us, and this is why I'm gonna ask and now invite Robert to come over, because we've been so in contact and touched with all single stories, but we have something in common, that is this love or in this territory, which are in Latin America. But at the same time, there's something that why we are here. At the same time that we've been developing our projects, there's so many things that is moving us individually in our organizations, but here we're all together. There's something that's why we're in this space. There's something that we can see. And that's what I'm going to invite Robert to come along and see how we can gather, and also to think about together what we are thinking as a strategic question that is part of our process, but in a different way. Thank you, Robert. I'll handle it to you. Robert, your microphone is closed. I'm not sure if you're already talking.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thanks, Sole. I was speaking. Yeah, thanks, Sole, and everyone. As we're kind of approaching winding up the call, I'd like to do a bit of a round in a moment and invite us all to think about what is most important to us in the long run. I mean, why am I doing this? I mean, informal processes like foresighting and innovation road mapping, you know, asking a question about what a preferred and a probable future could look like is probably one of the most important steps, if not the most important step. And the thing that amazes me is the power of a question, because what it invites us to do is attend to something. You know, if I ask you the question, what's so amazing about Marilini and the richness of the indigenous heritage that she's bringing to us, suddenly our mind and our intention is invited to turn to something that is utterly inspiring and could change our lives forever if we really embrace the richness of it. And equally, if we had turned our attention to anybody on this call and asked, you know, what is the gift that this person, this soul is here to give to us, that if we really became aware of it, could actually be a gift to us all. And so the power of a question is extraordinary. And I'm kind of reminded a couple of decades ago, I was at a seminar at the Australian National University, and this woman was talking about work she was doing with young children and what happens when they're actually at their best. Because often young children, when they're criticized, you know, try to offer them constructive criticism, they become very defensive naturally. You know, this woman, she said that in those environments where kids flourish, even when something is pointed out to them that they need to change, something very special is happening. And what she noticed was that in those contexts, their parents and those who cared for them, they genuinely acknowledged things that they admired about 5 to 1. So for every suggestion about how they might like to grow or change or improve, there was at least 5 natural acknowledgements of what is beautiful about what they do and who they are. And you know, when you admire something, you just, like if you admire a beautiful sunset or a lovely meal, you just naturally acknowledge it. You just say, wow, what a beautiful sunset. You know, it's like Marilene, what extraordinary indigenous headdress you're wearing. You know, and it's genuine. So you can't fake admiration. Either you truly admire something or you don't. And it's wonderful how spontaneously we acknowledge what we admire. But the other thing that amazes me is how often we don't even attend to what we admire. Most people, it's like, you know, Carolina was saying, in most of her work, she's translating violence. In these calls, she's translating love. And that's because that's what we're turning our attention to. And behind that is a question in us. And I think we can learn something from this woman that I met 20 years ago. We are free to turn our attention to what we truly admire and acknowledge that 5 times more than what we would speak about something we don't want. And in my own research, that kind of perspective predicts well-being 6 and 12 months later after a person utters what they've admired. Absolutely reliably. So this is very powerful. So it's less about the actual action. It's more about what you're attending to. And how often do we beat ourselves up for not being the wonderful person we want to be? Who keeps telling themselves, I'm not good enough? Put your hand up if that's true. Who beats themselves up for feeling they're not good enough? Yep. So I'm going to suggest that what we do is realize that we are more beautiful and worthy of love than we realize already. And that any beating up we do on ourselves is you're not seeing something. So as well as just with a deep heart, turning our attention to what we truly admire about others, we need to turn our attention to ourselves. And Ricardo, you know, you used to say, wow, I really admire this about myself. It's not ego. You know, Beth, Adrian, Anna, we are already utterly beautiful to our core. And we are blind to it. So the beauty of a question is, what would it look like if? What would it look like if we turned our attention to a profound aspect of the beauty of nature and of humankind and of all living species in the service of the future? So that sets a strategic agenda. I mean, that sounds like a very technical term, but what it does is when we set that question for ourselves, it unites our hearts and souls, and it orients us toward a world that's worth living for. And so we'd like, you know, Michelle, Marcel and I, we'd like to finish this conversation by doing a round. And just a quick question. Just finish the sentence stem. What would it look like in 10 years' time if, da, 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 da. And this is to do with the work we could do this year. So we're working together in clusters, but also in individual organizations. And so for me, the question is something like, so what would it look like in 10 years' time if we as a community learned something more about how to connect with each other spiritually, mentally, and physically, that enhanced that capacity to create families and communities of profound love and harmony? What seed could we sow together this year that would grow into a potential forest in 10 years' time? So that's the kind of question I've got. How could we do it, even if it's in very practical ways like sharing resources and knowledge, or telling powerful stories using participatory video, or learning or something? What would it look like in 10 years' time if? So, Sole, and then Sole, when you've spoken, I'd like you to then invite someone else to speak. So each person invites someone to speak, and we'll do a round.
I wanted to acknowledge that 10 years is a really good timing. 10 years for me is the time we have to do a just transition on climate change. So it's not a minor thing. It's a bit like the most important 10 years of our lifetime, in my view. So what would it happen? Is that how you started it? Can you say the beginning again?
So what would it look like? It's a vision statement. What would it look like?
What would it look like if we would learn more from each other, listen more to indigenous wisdom, prioritize it, and embed it in our work and our ways of being and doing in absolutely everything we do, and also in homegrown solutions to things. So when I say homegrown, I mean locally led, from local wisdom. Sometimes it's indigenous, sometimes not, but it's local, based on lived experiences more than education. So what would it look like? A world where we listen more to each other, privilege indigenous knowledge, as well as homegrown solutions to things, and we would share those and embody them in our work.
Beautiful. So I wonder if you could do two things for us, Soleil. Invite someone, but also could you write your question in the chat? It'd be wonderful to capture everybody's question after you.
I will write it, and I'm going to invite Mateo, if you're ready.
Obrigado, Soli, por me convidar para falar, e obrigado também pela sua contribuição.
Thank you, Soli.
Acho que...
And so I have a contribution as well, and thank you for your contribution. I think my question is also connected. I think in a very direct manner, I thought about the question, how would it be if in 10 years' time, people would receive more love, and people could also give this love back to other people and also to the world?
Wonderful.
Desculpa, Robert, pode falar.
And so, oh, sorry, Robert, yes?
Yeah, please invite someone else and write your question in the chat. That's wonderful, Matt. Who's next?
Beleza. Então eu convido a Marilene.
So I invite Marilene now to speak.
Obrigada, Matheus.
Thank you, Mateus.
Eu não posso falar a pergunta sem contar uma história. É rapidinho.
I can't say the question without telling a story. It's very brief, I promise. But the father also always used to tell us that Nyanderu, God, which is all the creator of everything, the primary source of life, it's everything there is, everything. And so we are part of it, part of the planet, stars, animals, everything is in this whole, which is the creator, the source of life. And if we are in this whole, in this all, we are part of what's divine and sacred, and every being and plant and animal, each grain of sand, each little piece of this land is part of this whole, which is God. And so how would it be if in 10 years' time, we could make people know that they are part of the whole, that they are part of everything, nature, animals, and plants? How would it be if we could
Por isso que elas são parte.
make this take this awakening for people so that they could discover that they're part of everything, that they're not separated from it all, that there's no division. And so if I'm part of nature, it also is a part of me. And if I'm part of that ocean, the ocean is part of me. And if I'm part, and Mateus is part of me, then I am going to be concerned with Mateus because it's part of me. And I'm going to be concerned with those children in that school. And I'm going to be concerned with what's happening in that class. And I'm going to be concerned, and I will worry with what Adrian is going through in another part of the world, because he's part of it. And we are part of everyone, and we are part of it all. We're not separated. We're together on this. We're together in this planet. And what if in 10 years' time we were able to do that?
Just beautiful, Marilyn. So would you be kind enough to invite someone, but also write your question, your vision in the chat?
Tá bom, eu vou chamar aqui a Michelle para estar falando.
Of course. So now I'd like to call Michelle, and I will write, because I have to write a lot since I spoke so much. Thank you, Mari.
So let's go. What would it look like in 10 years' time if human beings and nature and the whole planet can be seen, considered, and lived as one? So I pass to Beth.
Thank you, Michelle. Oh boy, these are all so beautiful. So what would it look like in 10 years' time if we are all committed to sharing and opening our heart and soul through embracing the value of vulnerability with those that we encounter? Asking for help, all of us asking for help and opening our heart and soul to each other. And I'll pass to Ricardo, if you are ready.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Yo me preguntaría cómo sería el mundo.
I would ask myself how we will be the world in 10 years' time if we were able
en lugar de verla
to change the relations of humans with nature, and instead of seeing nature as a resource to be exploited, to see the nature as a space we are part of, that we have to take care of, and that its conservation and protection is a form to retribute to our own selves, and how we can transfer that into organizations and companies, industries, behave, how to, instead of thinking that we have to domesticate nature, that we have to impose our force in the nature, recognize ourselves as part of nature, depending on that huge system that is nature. I would also ask myself how we will be the world if we go away from individualism and recognize in collaboration the base of all human processes. And that could bring us to learn from each other and to yield from the knowledge that we have had or have harvested in thousands of years, and that made us as a result of that knowledge. And if the knowledge that we produce is the basement of transformation for the generations to come, and those generations were able to have to put up that flag of recognizing human being as part of the nature and its transformative power. Thank you. And I give the floor to Beth.
Thank you. I just went though. I would be glad to pass to Marley.
Sorry, Ricardo says.
That's okay.
Eu acho que a minha pergunta, ela
Right. I think my question complements Beth's question a lot. It has to do a lot with that. It can be formulated sort of like, what would it be if in 10 years' time we could put ourselves to hear other people, to listen to them, and to be transformed by what we hear, using this in the sense of understanding that we are not hostages of the flow of life, but we can also build things. So that would be my question. Oh, and I pass the floor to Marcelo.
Em 10 anos,
How would it be if in 10 years' time we
a nossa capacidade de colocar atenção naquilo que importa,
acknowledge our ability to put attention to what matters and that is born in us, within us, from what we are and who we are, and in this strength and fortitude of who we are and in what we believe we might have transformed Latin America as a result.
Passo a palavra para Robert.
I think I pass the floor to Robert. Oh, Adrian.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to look more towards environmental conservation. And my question goes thus, what would it look like in 10 years if we realize that no forest management strategy can be successful by ignoring the interconnectedness between the indigenous people's culture, ecological knowledge, and the state of biodiversity? So we all know that these guys face the most effects of conservation strategies, and I fully believe that their participation in decision making and also integration into the society is non-negotiable. Yeah, so that would be my question. So I don't know who have not spoken yet. Well, maybe. Yeah.
Thanks, Adrian. I'd like to invite Anna and Maritza and Carolina also to speak. They're on this journey with us as well. So Anna, I'd like to pass to you. Or maybe while we're waiting for Anna, how about, here she is. Anna.
Sorry. Oi, pessoal. Desculpa, minha câmera morreu aqui. Então não
Hi,
vou
everyone.
conseguir.
I'm sorry, my camera just died, so I can't turn it on. I think in 10 years' time, I will like to see how technology is going to enable all of these other aspirations from the other participants here. So how can we impact everyone in Latin America by means of technology and its advances? I think that can bring a lot of benefits and facilitate this world connection. I think that's it.
Beautiful. And Anna, would you like to invite someone else?
Da interpretação para ver se ela quer falar.
So now I'll remove Carol from interpretation to see if she wants to speak. Yeah, sure. You people. Okay, I was trying to translate it and think about what I was going to say, but I'll try to be very brief. And I'll say that in Portuguese in the WhatsApp group, I promise, to Mateus and Mari. Well, since I am an interpreter, I think I would like to see in 10 years' time a lot of things, but one of which is how can people understand each other? I think plain and simple, how can we put ourselves in someone else's shoe and try to really listen to what the other person is saying instead of assuming, and that is so hard. But yeah, I think that's what I would like to see in 10 years' time. Because if we can put ourselves in other people's shoes without all the judgment, without all of what we do as human beings, we can understand that everybody just wants the same things. We all want to be loved and be happy and prosperous and have our culture respected and all of the wonderful things all of you do and say and work. And yeah, that would be it. Thank you.
Beautiful.
I'll say that in Portuguese in the group afterwards. So, Maritza?
It's hard to be the last one because you have said what it's deep on my heart. But I would say how it would look like in 10 years' time if Latin America was to recognize that they are a melting pot of different cultures and acknowledge that we are the result of a mixture that can bring to the world new insights, thanks to that richness of being so many things in one. That is what I think that I would like to see in 10 years' time. Yo lo voy a decir rápidamente en español para las personas que hablan español aquí. ¿Cómo se vería el mundo dentro de 10 años si los latinoamericanos fuéramos capaces de reconocernos como ese crisol de tantas cosas que somos y a partir de las cuales podemos aportarle al mundo? Si tuviéramos ese reconocimiento y lo pusiéramos al servicio planetario del bienestar. Thank you.
Wow, it's just so beautiful. And so just before I hand it back to Michelle to wind up, I mean, going forward, what we'll be doing is looking for opportunities to actually begin bringing that future world about. That's the reason why we set the question. So what can we do now over the next 6 months on our journey together to sow a seed for that future within our sphere of influence and capture a powerful story about it? Yeah, so we're going to pick this up next time. There's beautiful questions. So start thinking about it. What's the opportunity I've got now to actually sow that seed? And we'll pick that up at our next conversation. It's just beautiful. Thank you, everybody. Michelle?
Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much for all of you. This is just so inspiring. I feel like, let's go for next step. Let's start developing strategies, working together, doing all that to make all those questions reality in a way that we can go towards them. So thank you, Robert, so much for coming and sharing this, because as we talked last semester, our common vision and our main purpose, by the time we can feel and understand what are the questions that are really moving us towards something, we're going to find out next meeting how we're going to put all those aspirations and questions in a way that we can combine and have our own inspiration. That I know Robert is thinking and feeling already. There's so many things there's common that are moving us towards something that we want to see in this world. So thank you so much. Just to finish our meeting today, just as a checkout, I'm going to ask Anna to share our Mentimeter, because this is just coming over for those, just wrapping up a couple of the things. And know that this year we're going to have 2 hours meeting, which is going to be a little shorter. We're going to probably have just one meeting that is going to be a little longer, right? And hopefully in our next sessions, we're going to have people from all the clusters and all the organizations together with us. So today, just to finalize, oh, I'm just checking that my thing is not working. But Anna, can I ask you to share the Mentimeter question in the Zoom, in the screen, please? If you could open up. But mainly we're gonna say, and what we would like to say, it's, how are you living today? What are you grateful and thankful for from this meeting that we just had today? So please type it up in the Mentimeter. But guys, thank you so much. I know you're posting in the Mentimeter. Mentimeter was my computer. But if you like just to chat, just to say like a couple of words, just a word and leave to say what are you thanking for. And after I can share with all of you the Mentimeter screen by the time I get internet and I'll share with you. But I would like to say thank you so much for all of you. This meeting was great. Congratulate Marilene and Mateus for this co-creation together with me, Robert, Beth, and everybody. Also for Sole for coming here. All the great interpreters always. And Nana, who's being a great help for me not to go crazy and get more like white hair. So thank you so much for all of you. And a lot of appreciation for having the hope not as just a future thing, but having the hope as an action. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks everybody.
Thank
Just
you,
beautiful.
everybody.
Open your screens and then we can have a final photo. Adrian, and can you open your screen? Or your camera, actually. I'm not sure if he's hearing me. Oh, yes, it's coming. Almost. Yay!
I just took a screenshot of everybody. Yay.
Yay! Thank you, guys. In 2 weeks, we're going to be all together again to wrap up with all this. And all the questions, suggestions, and recommendations you might have, please send us, that we're going to be co-creating from this meeting to next meeting with this great team. Thank you so much. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. But some of you, we'll see you tomorrow and we'll see you next week. But most of the organizations, we'll see you in 2 weeks.